This video is an excerpt from a much longer European travel skills talk. To view other topics or to watch my travel skills talk in its entirety, visit ricksteves.com or check out my Rick Steves YouTube channel. Thanks. Transportation. Man, oh man, transportation is so important for your trip, and transportation is part of the joy of the trip. For me, just to be enjoying the beautiful engineering of the roads or going on the bullet trains in Europe, I love it. And every year, transportation investments are making the trip faster. It screws up my guidebook. I have to go back there all the time and update my guidebook because there's new tunnels, new bridges, new super freeways, new bullet trains, and the journey is faster this year than it was last year. When you're thinking about traveling around in Europe, because things are getting so fast, I think it's more important than ever that you make a point to get off the beaten path and smell the roses. Car or train, you got to make a point not to just zip from big city to big city to big city because you're missing a lot of the charm of Europe. A big question for us when we're planning a trip is, do we take the car or do we take the train? And you can analyze it. There's not one right answer. It depends on your style of travel. If you're going all over creation, that's too much driving. You really want a train pass or train tickets. If you're going from big city to big city to big city, you really don't want a car. A car is a worthless, expensive headache in a big city. You want the convenience of a train that takes you from downtown to downtown fast, safe, and effortless. If you're scouring the countryside, that's where public transportation schedules will be frustrating, and you want your own wheels. It's liberating. If you got a 2-week trip around Scotland, I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you got a car. If you're packing heavy, a lot of people just don't buy this business of packing light. Rent a car. You can even rent a trailer, okay? But if you're going by train, that's where it's really important that you're mobile, because whether you like it or not, by train, you're going to do a lot of walking with your gear. Another dimension of this choice, car or train, is how many people are you traveling with? If you're traveling alone, a car is ridiculously expensive, much cheaper by train. If there's 3 or 4 or 5 of you, it's cheaper by car than by train, because one car costs the same for 1 or 5 people. 5 train tickets cost 5 times as much as 1 train ticket. So you can see the economy of scale there, and you want to factor that in to your travel planning. Now for me, over the years, I find my travel style has evolved. In the old days, it was Eurail everywhere. I was just doing these once-over-lightly trips, and in the old days, Eurail passes were a better value. Now, train passes come with all sorts of caveats, and you got to pay extra supplements and reservations, and car rental has become relatively cheap, and you've got the advent of cheap discounted airline tickets. So what I find myself doing these days is cobbling together a whole mix. I'll buy point-to-point train tickets. I'll buy the big leaps by air because you can fly cheaper than you can take the train these days. And I will drill into certain areas with car rental, all mixing together quite nice. Let's talk about those different modes of transportation. By train, it's a futuristic world. And I'm telling you, just to be on the trains in Europe is a thrill. I just feel like a first-class human being when I'm traveling around Europe, even on second-class trains. This is the new train station in Berlin, the Hauptbahnhof, 1,000 trains coming and going a day, different levels, coming in at right angles. It's just remarkable. Bullet trains, very beautiful schedules, strict adherence to the schedules. You will be on the train because it closes in 25 seconds, and it closes and it's gone. So you really want to take advantage of that efficiency when you're traveling. I'll tell you, the trains are going faster and faster and faster. I was recently in Munich taking pictures of trains coming into the station, specifically taking pictures of what were cute little birds squished onto the windshield. I know, it's tragic. And when I saw that little bird, I thought 2 things. First of all, I thought, this is a dangerous continent if you're a slow bird. And then I thought, this is a surreal image. I don't know about where you live, but here in Seattle, you just cannot imagine a bird squished onto the windshield of a train. That's just not going to happen. I could imagine a bird sitting on a folding chair with a cigar and a drink on the rooftop, but not flattened to the window, and that's a routine problem right now in Europe because those trains are so darn fast. I was recently on a train going across the French countryside. It was silent, it was smooth, beautiful pastoral scenery out the window, and then I noticed the speedometer in the passenger car only turned on when the train was exceeding 300 kilometers an hour. They were bashful. They were sort of shy about the fact that it would be going less than 300 kilometers. 300 kilometers an hour, what's that? Well, this is going, what, 313 kilometers. To figure kilometers to miles is a very simple formula. You cut it in half and add back 10%. So round it up, say it's 300, cut that in half, what do you have? 150. Add back 10% of the original, what would that be? 30. 150 plus 30 is 180 miles an hour. So play that little game with yourself, because you should just look at signs in Europe, and if you think in terms of miles, be able to cut the kilometers in half, add back 10% of the original. 100 miles an hour, 50 plus 10. 100 kilometers an hour, 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour. 75 kilometers, cut it in half, that'd be about 40. Add back 47 miles. You can do that quite easily. In this case, we're zipping at 180 miles an hour into Paris. Now, when you get on the train tracks, now you got to play the game. And this is confusing even for locals over there. And those of us who take advantage of the system and understand how it works and read the signs have a huge advantage. Look at this track here. We are on track 6. Specifically, we're on segment A of track 6. A lot of people don't realize that tracks have segments. I've been diligently standing on track 6, not realizing there's going to be an A and C, and I'm wondering, where's my train? And then I see a little train down there 100 yards down the way pull off without me, because I didn't read on the schedule. It's leaving from track 6C, not 6A. I'm traveling here. I'm standing at segment A of track 6, and when I look at that train schedule readout, I see on the lower left A, B, C, D, E, F. Do you see that? That coincides to the segment of the platform, and I will see the first class car is at A, the dining car is B, C, D, and E are second class cars. Now that'll save you a lot of walking. And on a big train, you've got 20 cars, and 2 cars will be first class. One is a dining car, and the rest is second class. If you've got a reservation, you know your train car number. It says there, and then rather than this nervous commotion with all the people and thinking the door's going to close and the train leave without me, you can stand in front of the exact car that will be stopped when your train comes in, and you've got 2 minutes to get on board. People who don't know that simple trick get all frazzled, they have to jump on the train, and then they have to walk with their luggage 10 cars down. It's a horrible thing, and anybody can get around that by simply knowing how the system works. The clock up on top is critical. I don't care what your clock says, that's the time that matters, and it is now 12:16. In 2 minutes, at 12:18, this train is going to Luxembourg. It's exciting to use the trains. Here's another chart. The time right now, 5:12. At 5:33, remember the 24-hour clock, 17 minus 12, 5:33 p.m. You've got a train going from track 5B, segment B, to Vienna, specifically the West train station. Now look at the lower left on that reader, and you see B, C, D. This is a 3-car train, first class at B, coffee car at C, and second class at D. I'm standing at B, so what comes right here is the first class car. Got it? And when you see where that train's going, it's going to Vienna. Remember, Europeans call their cities sometimes different names than what we call them. Vienna is not Vienna any more than United States is Estados Unidos. Right? That's what we call it. The people who live there call it Wien. And big cities routinely have more than one train station. And you, as a smart traveler, need to know not just what city you're going to, but what station in that city. And this is the West Station. If you come into Vienna and the first stop is Ost, or Süd, or Nord, you're going to get off the train and have to wait for the next train, because your hotel's at West. So know your options that way. Also, on the very top of that readout, it says Verspätung 10 minutes. I don't know what Verspätung means, but I know that means the train is 10 minutes late, because they're not going to say 10 minutes early. And they're not going to say, in 10 minutes, there's a nice view out to the left of the car. The only thing they're going to say is, in 10 minutes, this train's 10 minutes late. So if you're on the ball, you realize, no, the train's going to leave at 17:43. That means I've got half an hour. I could actually run down the street and take some more photographs or have a coffee or get my sandwich for a picnic on the train. So use that train readout to your advantage. Here we have a reminder that half of all the schedules you see are not for you. They're arrivals. You need to know that you're looking at the departure schedule. You don't speak the language. They're not telling you the language here, but you speak enough Italian, don't you, to figure out which is departures and which arrivals? Are there any question? Which one is departure? The bottom one, because it says partenza rather than arrivo. The time right now is 12:06, and the train's departing at 12:14. There's a train going to Sestri Levante from track number 1, and it happens to be 10 minutes late. You don't need to know the word for track, you don't need to know the word for destinazione, and you don't need to know the word for ritardo. You just need to make your educated guess. This train is 10 minutes ritardo, okay? Now, what I like is to be able to look at the time right now and to look at that chart and to know exactly what trains are still on the track. This is very, very important because in Italy especially, a lot of trains are very late. And you can think, oh man, I missed the train, there was traffic, I'm coming in 15 minutes late. You look on the board and you realize your train is still there. A lot of times the train is still there. So play that board. Your printed schedule doesn't matter. This is the board, this is exactly what's going on, and you need to play it to your advantage. A big challenge for a lot of travelers is not to realize that you gotta date your tickets. Whether you're using the subway or the train, you gotta ka-chunk, put it in the box, and get the date printed on it. It's not every country, but in a lot of countries. So when you're traveling, know in this country if we have to date our tickets, because if you just innocently didn't know you have to date your tickets, you're sitting there in the train, the conductor comes, and you don't have a dated ticket, he thinks you're stealing. He's got every right to think you're stealing, and he's gonna levy a $100 fine on you. There's no excuse because you're a stupid tourist. Okay, so figure that out. If you have to date your ticket and you didn't date your ticket, you physically have to find the conductor before he finds you and say, I'm sorry, I didn't date it, can you date this for me, okay? But realize, ka-chunk before you get on the train. A great new innovation in Europe are these little quick information booths you'll find next to the platforms. I don't like to wait in a long information line where you have to grab a number and wait in the lobby, you know. I like a quick answer to a quick question right on the tracks. And all over Europe these days, you'll find that. Confirm your plans. Find out what the schedule is. You know, go to that little information booth, you'll do great. Europe has wonderful synchronicity in all of its trains. In this Norwegian port on some fjord way in the middle of nowhere, 4 trains a day come down and 4 boats a day take off. Each boat is coordinated with the arrival of the train. It's just logical. All over Europe, except in Italy, where the train comes in just in time to see the boat pulling out, you will find trains, departures, and boats and buses connected. And I'll remind you, a lot of the people using those trains are commuters, and every day they take the train and they catch on the boat. So if you stop and get a coffee or go to the bathroom, good chance you're gonna miss that coordinated connection and have to wait for the next train to come in before the next connection takes you out of there. Beautiful scenic rides all over Europe. Enjoy the view. Remember also, when you're traveling, Europe has first and second class cars. Second class is 4 seats across with more crowds. First class is 3 seats across with less crowds. There is a formula. You pay 50% more to go first class. $100 second class ride would be $150 in first class. Almost all trains have first and second class cars, each going precisely the same speed. And the new second class is more comfortable than the old first class. So I would say, if you're on a budget, second class is the best value. Having said that, when you're an American getting a Eurail pass or any kind of a train pass, it's often first class only. Of course, you can use it in second class, but it comes first class. And that's forced luxury, and I gotta say I like it. If I'm working hard and I got a choice between a $30 ticket and a $45 ticket for 3 hours in Italy, I'll spend the extra to have that convenience and the peace and quiet to do my work in first class. So you do have that option as you're traveling around Europe. A lot of people are a little nervous about their baggage. What are they gonna do with their bags? Well, you just carry it on and throw it in the rack up above. I mean, the only limit of how much you can carry onto the train is how long is the train stop and how quickly can you throw everything through the window. I've been seeing people actually moving from Turkey to Germany on the train, and they fill the compartment with all their stuff. So you just stick it in the overhead locker or overhead rack, and then of course you got to be concerned about theft as you're traveling, but it's a very convenient thing from a luggage on the train's point of view. In Europe, you can sleep on the trains when there's a 7 or 8 hour journey. The problem in recent times is trains are so fast that there's fewer convenient overnight train rides. What used to be an 8 hour ride is now a 4 hour ride, but there still are a lot of potential overnight train rides, and I love to sleep on the train because every time I sleep on the train, I save a whole day in my itinerary. And it just makes sense. I'm in Munich. I'm having a great time at the beer hall. I had checked my bag at the train station. At midnight, I stumble over to the station, find my bag, get on the train, and by 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm navigating the canals of Venice. It's pretty good. You won't sleep very well on the train, but you'll sleep really good the next night. You can sit up all night on the train, or for the cost of a cheap hotel room, you can get 2 beds in a couchette, and then you can sleep with a regular bed, and that's a great deal, and our guidebooks talk more about that. The rail passes used to be the way to go, and they're still a good way to go for a lot of people, but they're not quite as widespread in their use because, as I mentioned, trains are more expensive, cars are relatively less expensive, and train passes have sort of sold out by being not all trains, but now if there's fancy trains, they're not included, and you got to get reservations for certain expresses and so on. Nevertheless, you can save a lot of money if you're going to do a lot of traveling by knowledgeably picking the right train pass for you. This happens to be a German rail pass covering all the trains in Germany. You can get individual country passes, you can get all 17 country passes, you can get collections of passes, you know, France and Italy together and so on. Rather than 21 days in a row, a lot of people these days opt for what is called a flexi pass. A flexi pass gives you, in this case, any 10 days within 1 month. So you buy your flexi pass and it has 10 dates to fill in, and you choose them and you write in ink every day you get on a train. You wouldn't want to spend a whole day by just taking the little train out to the castle, because you'd rather pay $5 for that. You use this for real days of travel, and you bought it with those days in mind. This is a beautiful convenience when you're traveling around Europe if you knowledgeably get the right train pass for you. You can also buy tickets as you go, point-to-point tickets. You can buy them at travel agencies, you can buy them at the ticket window or from machines, and you can buy them online. One way or another, take full advantage of the train system in Europe. I want to remind you that bus transportation is a good alternative. In a lot of countries, there's a hub, and the rail lines all go in and out of that hub. And if you're going across the grain, you don't want to go by train. You'll have to go into the big city and out again, but buses will go across the grain. Also, in a lot of countries, buses are just cheaper and more prevalent and easier. There's, you know, you can go from Madrid to Toledo effortlessly by bus, and they're leaving every 20 minutes. In Germany, I've noticed there are new, very inexpensive buses directly competing with trains, actually using train stations as their own curbs to park on. Here we have a bus that goes from Rostock to Dresden in Germany, and if you do the arithmetic, it's 4 hours, 250 miles, $20. Pretty good deal, and you're on the Autobahn. Very comfortable ride. I was just in England, and I was in Oxford. I was in Cambridge, heading for Oxford, and I just assumed I'd have to take the train into London and go back out to Oxford, and then I realized there's a direct cross-country bus, and it was about half the price of the train. It took an hour or so longer, but very relaxing, and I thoroughly enjoyed catching the bus, which I'm not inclined to do instead of the train. So remember, you've got a good bus option when you're train traveling. When it comes to driving in Europe, you can rent a car remarkably affordably. And a cool thing about renting a car is you can go open jaws just like flying. You can pick up and drop the car at 100 different Hertz or Avis offices anywhere in Italy or France or Britain. Take full advantage of that. Think cleverly about not paying to have your car in London and Bath and York and Edinburgh. If you're going to England, you don't want a car in those cities. For the case of England, here's a smart trip. Land at Heathrow, take the bus or the train out to Bath, spend a couple of days in Bath without a car getting over jet lag, pick up your car in Bath, drive and do your countryside stuff, the Cotswolds, North Wales, Cumbrian Lake District, Hadrian's Wall, places you want a car. Drop the car when you get to Edinburgh, because you don't want a car in Edinburgh, 3 days there, and then you go to York by train, 2 days there, and in an hour you're in London, and you got 4 days in London where you don't want a car anyways. Do you see the advantage of that? You're using a car where you should use a car, and you're not paying to rent a car to pay to park it in a city where you wouldn't want to use the car anyways. Very, very important, and it's easy to do when you remember you can rent your car in that open jaw fashion, picking it up here and dropping it there. Europe's road system is really good. In the old days, there weren't a lot of freeways. Now, as Europe is united, they've got this huge investment in their infrastructure. It's like an internal Marshall Plan, and they're taking the poor countries, most of Eastern Europe, Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Greece, and so on, investing in them, and you got beautiful German-style freeways everywhere. And that comes with a lot of tunnels and a lot of bridges and just a lot of fun driving. Look at this tunnel here in Little Norway. 4 or 5 million people are drilling the longest tunnels in the world. Every tunnel in Europe has a sign outside that says the name of the tunnel and how long it is, which I find fun when I'm driving. Normally, they're just in meters. A meter is the same as a yard, essentially. In this particular tunnel, it is 24.5 kilometers. So figure 24 kilometers, cut it in half, 12, add 2. That's 14 or 15 mile long tunnel. That's a long tunnel. And those are kind of commonplace in Europe these days. You'll find a lot of tunnels saving a lot of time. You got to decide, are you going to get insurance with your car or not? And it is a headache to have a car in Europe knowing it's very expensive to bring it back with a ding in it. And I like the peace of mind of having zero deductible insurance, and one way or another I get it. Sometimes it's covered with your credit card, sometimes it's covered in your leasing or your rental fee, and sometimes you got to pay extra. Sort through that, but understand there's a huge, huge advantage to knowing you can bring your car back in unrecognizable shambles and just say, sorry. I'm new in this country. And I think psychologically you will travel safer when you know you can drive aggressively on the road. So pay for the zero deductible collision damage waiver. There's a lot of police in Europe, a lot of carabinieri in Italy, and there's a lot of American travelers getting tickets in the mail or just billed on their credit card. If you're coming into Bergen and you don't read the sign that says if you drive into town without this special local pass, you're going to have a fee, you're going to be billed. You know, if you drive into Bologna or Florence, you pass this one camera stop, you're going to get a pretty stiff penalty because you didn't read the sign. There's a lot of pitfalls, and the car rental company has your credit card, and when you break the law, you will pay the price. Remember, in Europe, you don't need the international driver's license. Some people will say you do. The international driver's license, technically, it's required in a couple of countries, but I've never used it. And the international driver's license serves as a formal translation of your American license. So when you get pulled over, the cop can read it okay. I find if you want to get it, it's sold easily at AAA. It's not very expensive. And it is a legitimate piece of disposable photo ID, which a lot of people find handy. But you can rent a car without the international license, from my experience. Look at those signs. A lot of cameras monitoring things. A lot of those red circles, remember the red circle says no go. So on the bottom left, bottom right-hand side here, it says zone traffico limitato. Must mean limited traffic zone. But then you look at the little caveat below. You see crossed hammers. Crossed hammers on the signs in Europe means work days. That could be Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, as opposed to a cross, which means Sundays and holidays. And you see on work days from 7:30 to 9:30, this is a limited traffic zone. You're coming in at 8 o'clock at night, you can drive right through. On the left, you see the speed limits all over the country. 50 kilometers an hour in the cities, 90 kilometers an hour outside of the cities, 110 on highways, and 130 on the freeway. All that's very straightforward. Be engaged, travel smartly, taking advantage of that. Remember, your issue when it comes to filling the tank is diesel or unleaded. And that's color-coded at the pump. Generally, the pump won't even fit in your car if you got the wrong stuff. But know if you're diesel to be sure you're not getting the wrong kind of gas. A lot of American travelers are all stressed out about the high cost of gas in Europe. It's expensive here, and it's twice as expensive in Europe. Don't worry about it. Cars get great mileage, distances are short, and I'm always impressed how much driving you can do for a very inexpensive price when it comes to the gas. That's a small part of the equation. I travel for a week in England, and I end up spending $60 on my gas. It's not a big deal. So, you know, you want to be careful with your needless driving, but you'll get around fine and affordable. I'm kind of old-fashioned when it comes to navigating. I like a map. I just bought an atlas when I was in England. Very nice to have that sitting on the driver's seat. On the other hand, it's pretty slick these days. The GPS that may or may not be with your car. And a lot of people find their Google Maps and their apps on their smartphone works even better than the GPS. I dropped a lot of pins on my last trip, and it works really great. If you like that, it'll bail you out of all sorts of problems. And these mapping apps and so on, they know all the one-way roads, and they know all the traffic jams, and it just works really marvelously. When it comes to parking your car, just be big-minded about it. Don't look for a free place to park your car. Just have I just hoard coins in my coffee dish there, and I just pay to park. Pay and display. I get as close as I can. I'll pay and display, use the machine, display the ticket, and then you've saved time and you've got a safer place to leave your car. Also remember, most rental cars come with the cardboard clock that any European has. If they don't have it, you can get it at a gas station or a convenience store. And this cardboard clock, you can see it here on the sign. This is parking, and it's free if you have the clock, the parking clock. You set the time you arrive on your cardboard clock. You put it on your dashboard, and then the parking attendant knows that you arrived at 12 o'clock, and this is good for 180 minutes on work days between 8 and 6, and you're good until 3 o'clock because you've got your clock on the dashboard. Make sense? That'll save you a lot of headaches, but you need to use that clock. It's hiding in your glove compartment. No parking on Thursday. You got to know the days of the week to drive smartly, and that would be Thursday. I don't know what dispari means, but it sounds like a bad word. Thursday, you can't do it. And then you look at that, but it says from 0 to 6. 0 would be midnight. 6 would be just when they start getting traffic. What's the deal here? On Thursday, what do? They sweep the street. We do it here too. So you're going to get towed if you're parking there on Thursdays from midnight till 6. And on the bottom, you can just guess that last line says, on every place on this street. That's what that would say. So have your phrase book, make your educated guesses, common sense, but you don't want to get towed. When it comes to flying, I rely on my travel agent, period, in Europe. It's complicated. I have complicated trips. I just use a travel agent. I think it's a great value. I don't even talk about it much in my classes. I don't mess with frequent flyer miles. I just want to fly efficiently over there, and I think it's a great value. To get to Europe and back for whatever it costs in 9 hours is a beautiful thing. As far as getting in and out to airports in Europe, there are wonderful shuttle services. Here in Barcelona, it costs $5. Every 15 minutes, a bus takes you right to the main square. If you get in a taxi, you just blew $30. Plenty of good ways to get downtown. In many airports in Europe, you just follow the crowds downstairs, and there's a bullet train that takes you at a government-subsidized price right into the town center. A big deal in Europe these days is the deregulated airline industry. When I was a kid traveling in Europe, nobody paid for a one-way flight in Europe who was spending their own money. It was ridiculously expensive. Nowadays, it's deregulated, and you can go round trip for 50 bucks almost anywhere in Europe if you know how to go to these discount airlines. Travel agents don't know about them. A lot of search engines don't find them. They got their own websites, and you got your Ryanair, you got your, even a company called Wizz Air can be a very good value, okay? Know the ins and outs, because sometimes they're cheap in the beginning, but if you don't know how to use it properly, you end up paying a lot of extra fees, and you didn't save much money. They also end up using secondary airports a lot, which I find a real drag. Frankly, I've got $100 for a ride in Europe, and I just go for the Lufthansa or the British Air one-way ticket that I get through my travel agent when I buy my big round-trip ticket. I just tell her also the little one-way flights I want, and they're average $100 a flight, and then I'm flying exactly when I want to go on a reliable airline with all the service, and I'm using the major airports. So to me, I don't mess with the discount airlines because I just want to get where I want to go when I want to go, and the savings is not that dramatic. But this opens up a lot of fun travel to a lot of people that really know how to save money that way. Commit yourself to public transportation. Public transportation is part of being in Europe. When I'm in London and I fly to Heathrow, I will buy the 1-week public transit pass covering all the subways and all the buses, and I get to my hotel from the airport, and I get the whole week of travel covered for what I would spend if I just bought a taxi from the airport to my hotel. Do you follow me there? I just feel good when I'm traveling that way. Public transportation, if you use the local passes especially, empowers you. A lot of Europeans never get around to owning a car and learning how to drive. They don't have any environmental or political agenda. It just makes no sense to drive because they got such wonderful public transportation. Figure out how that works and you will do better. A nice thing about public transportation is, and if it's a subway, it's below the traffic jams. There's a lot of traffic jams in Europe these days. Subways cover that beautifully. Wonderful subway systems. I want to remind you, there's a lot of crowds in the subway system, so you're likely to be pickpocketed in a jam. On a crowded bus, on the tourist line, you got the pickpockets, so be aware of that. Know the rudiments of using the public transportation, the subways and so on. We don't, if you use them in your hometown here in the United States, that's great. If you don't, you've got color-coded lines. This is Prague, 4 different color-coded lines, each with a letter. You navigate by cross points and by end stations, and by what line is it. So you got to know, what is the end station? where you're going and where do you connect, and it's pretty straightforward. Places like London and Paris have much more complicated train systems underground, but they work really well. And you'll find you can get within a 5-minute walk of almost anywhere in town when you empower yourself with the local public transportation. Now, you can get within a 5-minute walk if you use the correct exit. If you are mindless about that, you can walk an extra 10 minutes, literally. So just get in the habit of, when you get off of the subway, be heads up about your exit. Here we have in Paris, sortie. That's one of the key words you know when you're using the Paris subway system. And you got 3 different exits there, and there's 3 different exits elsewhere. You want to know where you're going. Here we have the exit in London on the tube, and you can see exit 1 takes me to Westminster Pier, exit 2 takes me to Victoria Embankment, and exit 3 takes me to the Houses of Parliament. Again, you'll save yourself a lot of sweat and extra steps by using those signs. In the subway system, on the bus system, like the train system, you generally need to date your ticket. And remember, the ticket is oftentimes good for an hour or 2 hours or 24 hours with unlimited changes and so on. You got lots of options, but you do have to date that thing. Something very popular in Europe these days, as in the United States with public transit systems, is these swipe cards. In London it's called the Oyster card. And it seems a little complicated, but it's not. You just pay $5 and you get your card, and then you top it up for as much travel as you need. And by having the swipe card, you get to travel half price. It's the only way to travel economically on the system. And when you're done, you can generally sell your card back for the deposit you paid for it. Buses complement the tube system quite nicely. A lot of travelers are disinclined to use the buses. Get your brain around that bus system. Get local help. It can really empower you as well. There are apps, your Google Maps, and individual cities have apps that help you know where the nearest bus or tram or subway is, how long it'll take, and how much walking is involved. You can refer to that before you decide if you're going to take a taxi or not. If it's really awkward, you could just hop in a taxi. If it's really slick, you just go down the stairs and you hop on the train. So use those apps if you're using public transportation. I'll remind you, taxis can be a good budget trick. A lot of people think, oh, taxis is like for wealthy people or a splurge. No, your time is really important. If there's 3 or 4 of you especially, you should routinely consider flagging down taxis because you save time, you save stress. It's just a relaxing, fun way to see the town. Unless there's traffic concerns. You can be embroiled in traffic and then you'll wish you went underground and used the subway. Taxis, it's either an issue of hailing it down, having the hotel or restaurant telephone it for you, or finding a taxi stand. And in some cases, hailing it down doesn't work, and you got to get to the taxi stand. In other cities, it's just you hail taxis. It's great. I find taxis generally very honest. It's hard to rip people off these days. The meters are all fixed really well so they can't tamper with them. And unless you meet a rip-off cabbie that's parked in front of a tourist attraction, just waiting to take a green, naive tourist for a ride, I think you can generally do pretty well on taxis. I think a great thing, rather than stopping or getting a taxi who's parked outside of a tourist location, they're looking for tourists. I like to hail one on the road that's driving by. He's not camped out. He hasn't spent a lot of time waiting for a easy victim, and you'll find they're safer that way. Understand the meter system, understand what tariff, be careful about common scams, but generally, taxis are a great, great service. Europeans love their bikes. Europeans bike to work, they bike with their families. A lot of times they don't use helmets. A lot of Americans are just appalled at Europeans that'll bike without helmets. They don't have any guns. You know, we lose 1,000 people a year with guns, but we have helmets on our bikes, so that's nice. Different societies get upset about different safety issues, I guess. But you got rental bikes that are quite nice, and when it's good for tourists to use a bike, you got plenty of opportunities to rent a bike. Look at Nice here. This used to be all traffic. Now this is the new layout in Europe. You've got 2 lanes now for cars, a beautiful bike lane, and a broad pedestrian boulevard along the waterfront. That's the new European, people-friendly waterfront all over the continent. You can bike along riverbanks, and you can bike through the countryside. There's a lot of fun ways that you can add to the joy of your travel by knowing your options and using transportation to empower you when you enjoy your trip to Europe. Thank you. If you've enjoyed this video, you'll find lots more at ricksteves.com and on my Rick Steves YouTube channel. Happy travels, and thanks for joining us.